Commander Susan Wright rubbed her tired eyes as she stared at the blinking light on her communications panel. It was 3 a.m. Earth Standard Time, and she was the senior officer on duty in the Earth Defense Fleet Command Center. The strange signal had appeared 20 minutes ago, broadcasting on all frequencies simultaneously, something that should have been impossible. "Have we identified the source?" Susan asked, her voice cutting through the tense silence of the command center. Lieutenant Carlos Mendez shook his head. "No, Commander. It's not coming from any known Earth vessel or station. Signal strength suggests it's originating somewhere near Jupiter's orbit, but there's nothing registered out there right now." Susan frowned. "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, revealing a figure that made everyone in the room freeze. The being had pale blue skin stretched over an elongated skull, with 4 dark eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. Its mouth was a thin line, and it wore what appeared to be some kind of ceremonial collar. "People of Earth," the being spoke in perfect English, though its mouth movements didn't match the words. "I am Xarleth, representative of the Galactic Council. We have observed your species for many decades." Susan straightened her uniform and stepped forward. "This is Commander Susan Wright of the Earth Defense Fleet. We were unaware of any galactic governing body. We welcome peaceful contact with other civilizations." The alien made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Your welcome is irrelevant. The Council does not seek your permission or approval. We have monitored your rapid technological advancement and aggressive expansion into your solar system with growing concern." "Our expansion has been peaceful," Susan replied, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. "We have claimed no territories beyond our own system." "Your definition of peace is meaningless," Xarleth said. "Your species evolved on a high-gravity death world. Your biology is designed for violence. Your history is written in blood. The Council has determined that unrestricted human development represents an unacceptable risk to galactic stability." Susan felt a chill run down her spine. She pressed the emergency alert button under her console, summoning Admiral John Perry, the fleet commander. "What exactly are you suggesting?" "It is not a suggestion. It is a directive. Humans will dismantle their space fleet and accept protected species status under Council supervision, or face the consequences." Admiral Perry rushed into the command center just as the alien finished speaking. He was still buttoning his uniform jacket, his gray hair uncombed. "Brief me," he whispered to Susan. "First contact, sir. They're calling themselves the Galactic Council. Not friendly. They just ordered us to disarm and submit to their authority." John nodded grimly and stepped forward. "I am Admiral John Perry, commanding officer of Earth's Defense Forces. We have no quarrel with your council, but we will not surrender our sovereignty. Perhaps we can discuss this like reasonable beings." The alien's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Your primitive attempt at diplomacy is noted. It changes nothing. You have 7 Earth rotations to begin dismantling your fleet. Refusal will be considered an act of war." John's face hardened. "And if we determine your threats against a peaceful civilization are themselves an act of war, then you will be destroyed," Xarleth stated simply. "Your species is young and weak. You face the combined might of 17 advanced civilizations. Resistance would be both futile and brief." The Admiral looked around the command center at the faces of his crew, scared but resolute. He squared his shoulders. "Let me be clear, Xarleth. Humans do not respond well to threats. We will not dismantle our defenses. We will not surrender our independence. If your council wants a war, you'll have one. But I promise you this, we will not make it easy, and we will not go quietly." Xarleth's expression didn't change. "Then the Galactic Council formally declares war upon the species known as humanity. Prepare yourselves." As the transmission ended, the command center erupted in panicked voices. John raised his hand for silence. "Send word to all Earth governments and colonies. We're at war." He turned to Susan, his expression grim but determined. "And send one more message to our new friends. Tell them." "Is that all you've got?" Empty threats from empty beings. Let's see how they like human defiance. 6 months passed after the Council's declaration of war. Earth united as never before, with former enemies putting aside differences to prepare for the coming storm. The orbital defense grid had been strengthened, and every available ship had been armed and made ready. Lieutenant Gary Coleman yawned as he monitored the long-range sensor array at Defense Station Alpha. His 12-hour shift was nearly over, and nothing unusual had appeared on the screens for weeks. Some people had begun to wonder if the alien threat had been a hoax or misunderstanding. The alarm blared suddenly, making Gary jump. Red lights flashed across his control panel. He sat up straight, his fatigue forgotten as he stared at the readings. "This is not a drill," Gary announced into his comm unit. "Multiple unknown vessels detected approaching from the outer system. Massive energy signatures. This is not a drill." Within minutes, Admiral Perry's face appeared on the main screen. "Report, Lieutenant." "Sir, I'm tracking at least 50 ships, bigger than anything we have. They're moving fast. We'll reach Earth orbit in under 3 hours." Perry nodded, his face grim. "They're right on schedule. The Council gave us 6 months to surrender, and here they are. Activate all defense protocols. I'm on my way to command." The first alien shots struck Earth's outer defense satellites before their ships even came into visual range. Advanced energy weapons tore through the first line of human defenses like paper. Dr. Lisa Ramirez watched the battle unfold from her lab deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. As a xenobiologist, she had spent the last 6 months studying the brief transmission from the Council representative, analyzing every detail of the alien's appearance and speech patterns. The communication frequency, she muttered to herself, watching the data streams from the battle. There's something unusual about how they coordinate their attacks. She rushed to the communication terminal and contacted the Defense Command Center. "This is Dr. Ramirez. I need to speak with whoever is coordinating our defense efforts." Gary Coleman's tired face appeared on her screen. "That would be me, Doctor." "Lieutenant Coleman, we're a bit busy at the moment." "Lieutenant, I've been analyzing their attack patterns. The Council ships are using synchronized tactics that require constant communication between vessels, but they're not using our standard communication frequencies. They're using something much higher in the spectrum." Gary frowned. "And that helps us how?" "We can disrupt them," Lisa said excitedly. "If you broadcast a sustained pulse on these exact frequencies, you should be able to interfere with their coordination." Gary looked doubtful, but nodded. "At this point, I'll try anything. Sending your frequencies to our remaining satellites now." The effect was immediate and dramatic. The alien formation, previously moving with perfect precision, broke apart in confusion. Ships began to collide with each other as their coordinated movements failed. "It's working," Gary shouted. "Whatever you did, it's working. Their formation is breaking down." Earth's remaining defense weapons targeted the now disorganized alien fleet. One by one, the Council ships began to fall. 3 hours later, the first wave of the Council's invasion force had been repelled, but the victory had come at a terrible cost. Nearly 40% of Earth's orbital defenses were destroyed. Thousands of defense personnel had died, and everyone knew this was just the beginning. Admiral Perry stood in the war room, looking at the holographic display of their remaining defenses. "Status report," he demanded. "We've captured some intact sections of their ships," Gary reported. "Dr. Ramirez is already studying them. She says each ship seems to have been crewed by different species." "Different species?" Perry asked. Lisa nodded as she entered the room. "The Council isn't one alien race. From what we can tell, they're a coalition of at least 17 different species, each with different biological traits and technologies. That's why disrupting their communications worked so well. They rely heavily on technology to coordinate between different species." Perry looked at the debris field orbiting Earth. "Then we've made 17 enemies. But we've survived their first attack," Gary added. "They expected to overwhelm us easily. They didn't." "No," Perry agreed with a grim smile. They didn't. And now they know what humans are capable of when our backs are against the wall. The real war has just begun. Captain Alan Peterson checked his oxygen levels one more time. His small team floated silently near the damaged alien vessel. The ship had been crippled in the battle but hadn't exploded like most of the others. This was humanity's first chance to capture intact alien technology. "Remember," Alan said quietly into his comm, "we don't know if anyone's still alive in there. Move carefully. Our goal is to secure the ship and gather intelligence, not to engage in combat." Olivia Martinez, the team's tech specialist, nodded inside her helmet. The ship's power systems are minimal. Life support appears to be failing. If any aliens are still in there, they're probably not in good shape. The 5-person team used their maneuvering thrusters to approach the alien vessel. It was unlike anything humans had built, curved and asymmetrical, with no visible windows or external lights. They located what appeared to be an airlock near the middle of the ship. "I think I can get this open," Olivia said, examining the strange markings around the door. She connected her tablet to what looked like an access panel. After a few minutes of work, the outer door slid open. The team entered cautiously, weapons ready. The artificial gravity was still working, though at a lower level than on Earth. The air was breathable but thin, with a strange, sweet smell. This ship wasn't built for beings from a high-gravity world, Alan observed as they moved through the corridors. The council races must have evolved in environments much different from Earth. They found the first alien body in what appeared to be a control room. The creature was thin and tall, with skin like pale parchment and 6-fingered hands. It had died at its post. "No wounds," said Sam Wilson, the team's medic, examining the body. "I think it died from the G-forces when the ship was hit. Its skeletal structure is much more fragile than ours. The battle maneuvers we consider routine would be deadly for these beings." Olivia had already begun working on the ship's computer systems. Their technology is advanced, but not impossibly so. Some of it actually seems inefficient by our standards. I think they've been relying on established designs for a very long time without much innovation. Alan nodded. "Keep working. Download whatever you can." The team continued exploring, finding more alien bodies as they went. They represented 3 different species, all with similarly fragile physiology compared to humans. "Captain, I've got something," Olivia called over the comm. "I've managed to access their database. There's so much here: star charts, species profiles, council history. But most importantly, I know why they declared war on us." The team gathered around her display screen. "We scared them," she explained. "Earth is what they call a death world. High gravity, varied climate, dangerous wildlife. Species that evolve in such environments are rare in their experience, and typically far more physically resilient than most council races. They're afraid of our potential," Ellen realized. "Not what we are now, but what we might become." "Exactly," Olivia said. "According to their models, humans could surpass council technology within a century if left unchecked. They've never encountered a species that advances so quickly. And there's something else. They've done this before. The council has a policy of containing or eliminating any species they consider a potential threat." Sam looked up from examining another alien body. "So this war was preventative. They attacked us because we might become dangerous someday." "That's their justification," Olivia confirmed. "But there's good news, too. I've found the coordinates for a nearby council outpost. It's a supply and coordination hub for this sector. And they don't know we have this information." Alan studied the coordinates. The outpost was in the Proxima Centauri system, Earth's nearest stellar neighbor. "This is our chance to take the fight to them. They expected us to be trapped in our own solar system, defending until we're worn down. They never expected humans to counterattack." "Will Earth vessels be able to reach Proxima Centauri?" Sam asked. "The experimental FTL drives should be ready," Alan said. "This is exactly the test case we need. We can show the Council that declaring war on humanity was their biggest mistake. As they prepared to leave with their valuable intelligence, Alan took one last look at the alien bodies. They thought we were dangerous because of our world. They were right, but they still underestimated what that means. Humans don't just survive on a death world. We thrive on it. General Maria Sanchez stood before the combined Earth military leadership, her expression determined. The room was silent as she pointed to the holographic display showing the Proxima Centauri system. "This is our target," she said. "The Council outpost that Captain Peterson's team discovered. It's a major supply hub and coordination center for their operations in this sector. If we can strike it successfully, we can disrupt their entire war effort against Earth." Admiral Perry nodded. "How do you propose we get there?" "Our experimental FTL drives have never been tested in actual combat conditions." "The EDS Defiance is ready," Maria replied. "Captain Daniel Jones has volunteered his ship and crew for this mission. The Defiance has been retrofitted with our most advanced FTL drive and weapon systems." Murmurs filled the room. The EDS Defiance was Earth's newest battleship, originally designed for deep space exploration before the war began. Now it would become humanity's first interstellar warship. 3 days later, Captain Daniel Jones stood on the bridge of the Defiance as the crew prepared for their historic jump. "All systems ready," Captain reported his first officer, Lieutenant Kate Miller. "FTL drive is charged and coordinates are locked in." Daniel took a deep breath. "Communications check." Eric Washington, the communications officer, nodded. "All communication systems are functioning. We'll be able to send updates back to Earth through the quantum relay." "Very well." Daniel settled into his command chair. "This is it, people. The first human ship to travel to another star system, and the first to take the fight directly to the enemy. Engage FTL drive." The stars outside the view screen blurred and stretched. The ship shuddered briefly, then steadied as it tore through space faster than light. 4 hours later, they emerged in the Proxima Centauri system. "Status report," Daniel demanded as soon as they dropped out of FTL. "All systems operational," Kate confirmed. "Minimal stress on the hull. The drive performed perfectly." "Sensor sweep shows 5 Council vessels in orbit around the 4th planet," reported the sensor officer. "They don't appear to have detected us yet." Daniel smiled grimly. "They're not expecting us. They think we're trapped in our own solar system, fighting a defensive war. Let's show them how humans fight when we take the offensive. Weapons hot. Plot an attack course." The Defiance moved silently through the system, its stealth systems hiding it from the Council's sensors until they were almost in firing range. When the alarm finally sounded on the Council vessels, it was too late. "Fire main batteries," Daniel ordered. The human weapons, designed to function in Earth's higher gravity and atmospheric conditions, proved devastatingly effective against the Council ships. 2 enemy vessels were destroyed in the opening salvos. A third was crippled and drifting. "Captain," Eric called urgently. "I'm intercepting Council communications. They're in complete disarray. They keep repeating something about impossible and death worlders. I don't think they ever expected us to strike back." Daniel nodded. "Keep listening. Any information we can gather will be valuable." As the battle continued, the Defiance took damage but remained operational. The last 2 Council ships attempted to flee but were caught by the Defiance's superior engines. "Captain," Eric said suddenly, "I'm picking up non-Council communications from the planet. It's not in any language I recognize, but it's definitely not Council standard." "Put it on screen," Daniel ordered. The view screen showed a small furry being with large eyes. It spoke rapidly in an unknown language. "Computer translation suggests they're asking for help," Eric said. "I think they're not Council members. They might be a subjugated species." Daniel made a quick decision. "Send a message that we're here to fight the Council, not them. Ask if they need assistance." The response was immediate and clear even without translation. The alien's expression changed to one of hope. They're called the Velari, Eric reported after more exchanges. The Council conquered their homeworld 50 years ago and has been using them as forced labor. There are thousands of them on that planet. Daniel looked at his damaged ship, then at the defeated Council vessels. Contact Earth. Let them know we've succeeded beyond our expectations. We've struck a blow against the Council, and we may have just found our first allies in this war. He turned to Kate. Prepare a landing party. Let's go meet our new friends. Ambassador Kelly Howard had never expected to become humanity's chief diplomat to alien species. 6 months ago, she had been a professor of cultural anthropology. Now she stood in a conference room aboard the EDS Defiance, facing representatives from 7 different non-human species. The Velari sat closest to her. They were small, with soft fur covering their bodies and large eyes that seemed to catch every movement. Beside them were the tall, willowy hacks, the insect-like Jixri, and 4 other species who had all suffered under Council rule. We understand your caution, Kelly said, her voice calm and measured. The Council has hurt all of us, but that is why we must work together. Alone, none of our species can stand against them. Together, we have a chance. The Velari representative, who called himself Trell, nodded his furry head. For 50 cycles, my people have been slaves. We watched our cities fall, our history erased. When your ship attacked the Council base, it was the first hope we had felt in generations. Engineer Frank Rodriguez stood near the back of the room. He had spent the last month working closely with Velari technicians, learning about their technology. While the Council had forbidden the Velari from developing weapons, they had encouraged them to create efficient power systems and communication devices to better serve their masters. The technology exchange is going well, Frank reported. The Velari power systems are far more efficient than ours. With their help, we've already improved the Defiance's engine output by 30%. Kelly smiled. This is exactly why cooperation benefits us all. Each of our species has different strengths, different technologies. The Council kept us separate because they feared what would happen if we shared our knowledge. A message alert sounded, and Kelly checked her tablet. Her expression grew serious. We've just received word from Earth. The Council has established blockades around our solar system. They're trying to isolate us, cut us off from our new allies. The representatives looked concerned, but the tall hack stood up. My people can help with this problem. Before the Council conquered us, we were traders who traveled between stars. We developed stealth systems that hide our ships from detection. Perhaps we can adapt these systems to your vessels. That would be invaluable, Kelly said. If we can bypass their blockades, we can continue to coordinate our efforts and strike at Council targets. The Jixri representative clicked his mandibles together. The Council has dominated dozens of species across this sector of the galaxy. Many would join your coalition if they knew resistance was possible. Kelly looked around the room at the diverse gathering of species. 6 months ago, humans hadn't even known alien life existed. Now they were forming alliances that could reshape the galaxy. Then our next step is clear, she said. We need to spread the word. The Council has ruled through fear for too long. They believe that by declaring war on humanity, they would easily eliminate a potential threat. Instead, they've created the very coalition they feared most. Later that day, Kelly met with Captain Jones on the bridge of the Defiance. The negotiations went well, she reported. All 7 species have agreed to join our coalition. The Maraxi have even offered to share their advanced stealth technology with us. Daniel nodded, looking at the star map that showed Council territory spanning thousands of light years. It's still a David versus Goliath situation, he said. The Council has resources from hundreds of star systems. True, Kelly acknowledged, but they've never faced organized resistance before. They've grown complacent, arrogant. And now they're starting to realize that attacking humanity was their greatest mistake. How so? Daniel asked. Kelly smiled. Because humans don't just fight for themselves. We fight for everyone who needs help. The Council thought they were declaring war on one young species from a single planet. Instead, they've triggered the first galactic revolution. And we're just getting started, Daniel said, looking at the new coalition fleet gathering around his ship. I wonder if the Council is still asking if that's all we've got. Admiral Paul Simmons studied the holographic map showing Council supply routes across 3 star systems. The glowing lines represented the lifelines that kept the Council's war machine running. After a year of fighting, the human-led coalition had learned that direct confrontation with superior Council forces wasn't always the best strategy. We hit these points simultaneously, Paul said, highlighting several intersections where supply routes converge. Small, fast ships with Meroxy stealth systems, in and out before they know what happened. His officers nodded. The strategy had been working well. Rather than challenging the Council's massive battleships, coalition forces had been targeting supply ships, communication relays, and fuel depots. The Council was slowly being bled dry. On the other side of the base, Dr. Nicole Baker was meeting with a group of alien representatives. As a psychologist, she had been tasked with understanding the various Council species and finding ways to exploit their cultural and psychological weaknesses. The Zentari are the most aggressive of the Council races, she explained, pointing to an image of a reptilian being with armored scales. But the Abraxas are actually more influential in Council decisions, and they have a cultural taboo against prolonged conflicts. Krell, the Velari representative, looked intrigued. The Abraxas conquered my world, but they left quickly once the Zentari arrived to maintain control. We always wondered why. Nicole nodded. According to the data we've gathered, the Abraxas believe that any conflict lasting more than one of their years brings spiritual pollution. They're becoming increasingly uncomfortable with this war. Can we use that? Asked Paul, who had joined the meeting. I think so, Nicole replied. I've developed a psychological warfare campaign specifically targeting the Abraxas. Messages emphasizing the continuing length of the conflict, subtle reminders of their own cultural taboos. If we can get the Abraxas to withdraw support, the Council will begin to fracture. 3 weeks later, Paul received the news he had been waiting for. The Abraxas had formally withdrawn their support for the war against humanity. Their announcement cited irreconcilable differences in military philosophy with the other Council races, but everyone knew the real reason. Nicole's campaign worked perfectly, Paul told his officers. The Abraxas couldn't continue to violate their own cultural beliefs, and now 3 more Council species are calling for peace talks. Lieutenant Jacob Reed looked up from his console. Admiral, we're detecting a massive energy buildup in the TAS CD system. The Zentari fleet is deploying something new. Paul frowned. The hardliners are doubling down. What are we looking at? Unknown, sir. But the energy readings are off the charts. The Meroxy scouts are calling it a star killer. 2 days later, Paul's fleet barely survived an encounter with the new Zentari weapon. The massive device had fired a beam of energy that destroyed one of Paul's ships instantly and damaged several others before they could escape. It uses the same principle as their standard weapons, but on a scale we've never seen before, reported the chief engineer. If they deploy more of these devices, they could target Earth directly, even through our defenses. Paul looked at the damaged ships in his fleet. The coalition had been making progress, but this new weapon could change everything. We need to capture that technology, not to use it as a weapon ourselves, but to understand it so we can defend against it. The mission was nearly suicidal. Paul led a small team of ships using the most advanced Meroxy stealth technology. While the main fleet distracted the Zentari with an attack on a nearby base, Paul's team infiltrated the facility where the Star Killer was being prepared for its next deployment. After a fierce battle, they managed to capture the control systems of the weapon before the Zentari could destroy it. As they escaped with their precious cargo, Paul sent a message to Earth. We've obtained the Star Killer technology. The Zentari were willing to destroy entire planets rather than accept defeat. But once again, they underestimated what humans will do when pushed into a corner. This may be the turning point of the war. As his damaged ship limped back to the Coalition base, Paul wondered what the Council would think of humanity now. They had declared war expecting an easy victory over a primitive species. Instead, they had found an enemy who wouldn't give up, who kept coming back stronger, and who kept asking, "Is that all you've got?" 3 years into the war, Earth had changed in ways no one could have imagined. Alien technology had been integrated into daily life. Humans worked alongside beings from a dozen different worlds. The Coalition fleet, once just a handful of ships, now numbered in the hundreds. Chief Scientist Kevin Russell stood in his laboratory aboard the Coalition flagship Freedom, staring at the captured Centauri star killer technology. For months, he and his team had worked to understand the deadly weapon that had nearly turned the tide of the war back in the Council's favor. "Amazing," Kevin muttered as he examined the device's power core. "They designed this to destroy, but its principles could be used for so much more." His assistant, a Hax named Leary, looked up from her workstation. "Have you determined how to replicate it?" Kevin shook his head. "No, and I don't want to. A weapon this powerful shouldn't exist. But I think I've found something better." He pulled up a holographic display showing a modified version of the Star Killer's energy matrix. "We can adapt this technology to create a defensive system instead, something that can neutralize Council weapons without destroying their ships." Leary's eyes widened. The Council would never have considered such an application. They only think in terms of bigger weapons, more destruction. "That's their weakness," Kevin said. "They see only one path forward. Humans look for alternatives." While Kevin worked on transforming the Star Killer technology, Major Linda Phillips prepared for the most daring mission of the war. Her Special Forces team, composed of humans and aliens from 4 different species, had trained together for months. "The target is the Council's central communication hub in the Sirius system," Linda explained, showing her team a detailed map of the facility. "Our intelligence suggests it coordinates military networks across 5 star systems. If we can infiltrate it and upload this virus, we can temporarily disable their defenses across a significant portion of their territory." Her team nodded solemnly. The mission would be extraordinarily dangerous, requiring them to penetrate deep into Council space. "The virus was created by Chief Scientist Russell," Linda continued. "It's designed to exploit the same weakness we discovered in their communication systems during the first battle. But this version is far more sophisticated. It won't just disrupt communications. It will give us control of their defensive systems for a short time." 3 days later, Linda's team approached the communication hub in a small ship disguised as a Council maintenance vessel. Using identification codes provided by Coalition intelligence, they docked without raising alarms. "Remember," Linda whispered as they prepared to leave their ship, "we're not here to fight unless absolutely necessary. Our mission is to reach the main computer core and upload the virus without being detected." The team moved silently through the facility, avoiding patrols when possible and using non-lethal methods to subdue Council personnel when necessary. Their diverse team proved invaluable. The Jixri member could detect approaching guards with his sensitive antennae, while the Maraxi could create brief distortions and visual sensors to hide their movements. After 2 tense hours, they reached the central computer core. Linda's hand was steady as she connected the data drive containing Kevin's virus to the Council system. "Upload initiated," she reported softly. "Estimated completion time, 3 minutes." Those 3 minutes felt like an eternity as the team maintained their position, ready to defend against any interruption. When the upload completed, Linda quickly removed the drive. "Let's move," she ordered. "We have 20 minutes before the virus activates." The team made it back to their ship without raising alarms and was halfway to the jump point when the virus began its work. Throughout the Sirius system and beyond, Council military networks suddenly went dark. Defense systems shut down. Communication relays fell silent. From her ship, Linda watched as the Coalition's main fleet emerged from hyperspace, perfectly timed to coincide with the blackout. Without functioning defenses, the Council forces in the area were quickly overwhelmed. Mission accomplished, Linda reported as her ship rejoined the fleet. The virus worked exactly as planned. Within hours, coalition forces had liberated 3 subjugated homeworlds. It was the most successful operation of the war, achieved not through superior firepower, but through ingenuity and cooperation. As news of the victory spread, the Council convened an emergency session. For the first time since the war began, the majority of Council species now favored peace talks with the humans and their allies. 5 years had passed since the Galactic Council had declared war on humanity. 5 years of battles among the stars, of losses and victories, of alliances forged in the heat of conflict. Now, representatives from both sides gathered in a neutral space station orbiting a star on the edge of what had once been Council territory. Stephanie Clark, Earth's lead negotiator, sat calmly at the large circular table. Around her were representatives from the coalition of formerly subjugated species. Across from them sat the remaining Council delegates, their postures stiff and uncomfortable. "We are prepared to offer a ceasefire," began the Zentari representative, his scaled face unreadable. "We will recognize Earth's sovereignty and the independence of its colonies in exchange for certain concessions." Stephanie smiled politely. "I appreciate your offer, but perhaps there's some confusion about our respective positions. You speak as if the Council still holds the advantage. The reality is quite different." She activated a holographic display showing the current state of the conflict. Nearly half of what had once been Council space was now under coalition control. Their fleets were in disarray, their supply lines disrupted, and their member species increasingly in open rebellion. "We're not here to negotiate a ceasefire with concessions," Stephanie continued. "We're here to discuss the complete restructuring of galactic governance." The Council representatives looked shocked. The Abraxas delegate leaned forward. "Restructuring? The Council has maintained order in this galaxy for 10,000 years. And in those 10,000 years, how many species have you subjugated?" asked Krell, the Velari representative. "How many cultures have you destroyed? How many potential allies have you turned into slaves?" Stephanie nodded to Krell, then addressed the Council again. "Our proposal is simple. The hierarchical council will be dissolved. In its place, we will establish a galactic assembly where all species have equal representation and equal rights." The council representatives erupted in protests, but they fell silent when Admiral Perry entered the room. His uniform bore the scars of 5 years of war, and his face showed the weight of decisions that had cost lives on both sides. "We could continue this war," Perry said quietly. "We could continue to liberate worlds and dismantle your empire piece by piece, but humans don't want an empire of our own. We want a galaxy where all species can thrive together." The negotiations lasted for days. The council representatives fought against the inevitable, but their position grew weaker by the hour as more of their member species declared independence or pledged allegiance to the coalition. Finally, the agreement was signed. The Galactic Council was officially dissolved. In its place would stand the Galactic Assembly, with its headquarters to be built on a neutral world where all species could meet as equals. 1 month later, Captain Ryan Wood stood before the newly formed assembly. He had been a young officer during the first battle for Earth's orbit. Now he wore the formal uniform of humanity's first representative to the assembly. 5 years ago, Ryan began, his voice carrying across the chamber. A species called humans was deemed too dangerous to exist freely among the stars. The council declared war on us, expecting quick surrender from what they saw as primitives. He looked around at the diverse gathering of beings from across the galaxy. Some had been enemies, others allies, but now all were partners in a new chapter of galactic history. When faced with the council's ultimatum, we asked, "Is that all you've got?" It wasn't bravado or arrogance. It was the human spirit asking the question we've asked throughout our history when faced with seemingly impossible odds. Ryan smiled. What the council failed to understand wasn't just our resilience in battle. They failed to understand that humans fight hardest not for conquest, but for freedom. Not just our own freedom, but freedom for all who are oppressed. He extended his hands to encompass the assembly. Today we take our place, not as conquerors, not as the new rulers of the galaxy, but as equals among the stars. We bring with us our determination, our creativity, and our belief that diversity makes us stronger. As Ryan finished his speech, the assembly erupted in cheers and the equivalent expressions of approval from dozens of different species. In just 5 years, humanity had gone from an isolated species facing extinction to the architects of a new galactic order. And it had all started with a simple question that embodied the human spirit. Is that all you've got?